right. I'm Garrett, and I'm a member of the Church and Society Committee. And we prepared this service together for Indigenous Day of Prayer. And we're pleased again to have the privilege of hearing from Doug Cuthand later on. So as we begin worship today, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory, the ancestral land of several Indigenous nations and part of the homeland of the Métis. We are grateful for its stewardship through the centuries. We respect the sacredness of our shared home and the ground on which we walk. We are also proud to be an affirming ministry. Most of the prayers and readings today come from a service prepared by the United Church of Canada in 2017 called Living on the Path of Respect. I'll also note that we have obtained permission from Louise Half for the use of one of her poems and from Linnea Good for her music. Now I'd like to invite Chris to join us and lead the call to worship. And Chris, I believe you and I will be alternating on this. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Creator has placed each and every one of us here with purpose.
Let us praise Creator for the earth below our feet, for Mother Earth sustains us, and all creation cries out for justice.
Creator has given us the eastern direction, the direction of vision, children, and the sun that rises on us each day.
Let us
view the world with childlike wonder, full of awe and humility, thankful for the new day that dawns on us each and every morning. We give thanks for God, who gives us new mercies every day.
Creator has given us the southern direction, the direction of honesty, adolescence, and growth.
Help us to speak only the truth and open our hearts to hear the stories of others. Inspire us to grow in the image of Christ, who teaches us to walk on the good path.
Creator has given us the western direction, the direction of adulthood, harvesting, and deep spiritual understanding.
Give us the tools we need to act on the knowledge we are gathering. Allow us to act with maturity and grace.
Creator has given us the northern direction, the direction of elders, achievement, and deep connection to spirituality.
Empower us to learn from the past and to move forward to create your companionship of empowerment here on Mother Earth.
Holy Spirit, give us the teachings we need to correct any wrongs and to live lives full of love, peace, and hope.
Be with us now, Creator, as we worship you in awe-filled praise. Amen. We'll begin our time of confession by reading the 1986 United Church of Canada Apology for Residential Schools. And I'm reading this because I'm a settler, and this apology comes from the settler perspective. Long before my people journeyed to this land, your people were here, and you received from your elders an understanding of creation and of the mystery that surrounds us all, that was deep and rich and to be treasured. We did not hear you when you shared your vision. In our zeal to tell you the good news of Jesus Christ, we were blind to the value of your spirituality. We confused Western ways and culture with the depth and breadth and length and height of the gospel of Christ. We imposed our civilization as a condition for accepting the gospel. We tried to make you like us, and in doing so, we helped to destroy the vision that made you what you were. As a result, you and we are poorer, and the image of the Creator in us is twisted, blurred, and we are not what we were meant by the Creator to be. We ask you to forgive us and to walk together with us in the Spirit of Christ, so that our people may be blessed and God's creation healed.
Good morning. My name is Dolores, and I'm from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. great Creator, look at what has happened. Lands have been stolen, drinking water must be bought. We are exhausted, many must beg for food. Wars are waged against the innocent, bodies are taken advantage of, elders are disrespected, many work for low pay in unsafe conditions. The sounds of violence and loss drown out the melodies of music and laughter of play. We feel like you have forgotten us. We fear that you have rejected us in anger for the parts we have played in the desecration of your creation. O great Creator, earth cries out to you. Our hearts ache and our spirits are weary from experiencing the rending of the web of all our relations. O Creator, hear our prayer.
I'd like to call on Dolores once again to read this poem by Louise Half entitled Dedication to the Seventh Generation.
Aha, Kawitamatuin Achimawin, which is, I will read you a story. I will share these stories, but I will not share those from which I will never crawl. It is best that way. I forget to laugh sometimes though in these 40 years my life has been filled with towering mornings, northern lights, sit by the Katawin, the fireplace, drink muskeg and mint tea, hold your soul, but do not weep. Not for me, not for you. Weep from those who haven't yet sung. Weep for those who will never sing.
Good morning, Doug. I don't think we've acknowledged your presence yet. Good to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to give a little background to the topic first by saying that if you recall, in 2016, the United Church implemented UNDRIP, or the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, as its framework for reconciliation. And then following that, there was Bill C-262, and that was an act to ensure that the laws of Canada are in harmony with UNDRIP. And as you may recall, we lobbied to have that passed, but it failed in the Senate in June 2019. And now we have Bill C-15. And that's where I'm going to let Doug pick up. But first of all, I know Doug is no stranger to us because he's joined us many times in worship. But I do want to acknowledge that we know him best maybe because now his article every Saturday almost in the Star Phoenix, and at our breakfast brunch table we often fight over that piece of the newspaper. and some of us remember him from Indigenous circles, but he's also a film producer. I understand working on his autobiography because he sent me a bit of a whimsical biography from that. So I'm happy to have you with us, Doug, again, and we'll let you take over now and pick up with Bill C-15 or whatever background you need to share with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to greet you this Sunday. I guess when we look at the Bill C-15, we have to put it in context. It's a major piece of work, and it took several decades to get us to where we are today. I'd like to back up and maybe tell you a little bit about the history of it. And Canada played a prominent role. Back in the 1970s, we had a leader of the National Indian Brotherhood called George Manuel, and he began an organization following his when he completed his tenure as a National Indian Brotherhood leader. He organized a movement called the World Council of Indigenous People. And this organization brought in Indigenous people from all around the world, mainly South America, New Zealand, Australia, and so on. And I attended a few of these meetings, and it was amazing to meet people of different countries and how we had basically the same experience. I went to Australia and met with Australian Aboriginal people, and they told me their history. New Zealand people were there. In fact, we had people from all around the world. And what's amazed me was we have Indigenous people in many countries that we never thought of. Japan, for example, we had a member of the Ainu Nation, and he was an ancient tribe that lived in Japan for years before the current Japanese people migrated from the mainland. So meeting these people is really a privilege and an honor. Anyway, this organization grew, and more and more discussions were held, and it became a working group at one time to move the whole thing forward. Now, in 1982, the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations developed a working group on Indigenous populations. There was a man by the name of Jose Martinez, and he had developed a paper where he'd outlined the oppression and marginalization and exploitation that was suffered by Indigenous peoples worldwide. So this working group submitted its first draft in 1994. And we had a number of our people working in there. In fact, it's the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous People has actually turned out to be almost a career for some people. I know Wilton Littlechild, who is quite a prominent leader, worked on this. And in Saskatchewan, we had Sharon Venn, who was a lawyer, and she worked on this thing. So they spent a lot of time in New York with the United Nations. It was very frustrating, slow-moving work because they had to involve all 200 nations worldwide. They had to deal with so many different issues. For example, the nations in Africa were very reluctant because they are Indigenous people and they run their own country, but within their country they have other people, Indigenous people. So it was kind of a weird mix. So the term Indigenous really boiled down to those people that have been colonized by European nations or other nations rather than minorities. You know, one could say the Welsh were a minority, an Indigenous minority in England, for example, and rightly so. So like I say, the definition widens way out, but they really concentrated on the Indigenous people of the world who had been subjugated to colonialism. So in 2007, the final draft was finally adopted by the United Nations, and that was a major undertaking at that time to get it that far. It involved a consensus of all nations of the world. There were 4 nations that opposed it and voted against it. Those nations were the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And they all voted for it because they had, against it, I should say, because they had large Indigenous minorities that were very politically active in demanding their rights. It only boiled down to that. Other countries in South America, for example, supported it. I went to Peru and attended a Pan American Indian meeting one time in Cusco. And I was amazed that some countries like Bolivia and Peru have Indian, if I can use that term, Indigenous majorities, even though they're not, they're subjugated. So it became a brotherhood of Indigenous people all around the world. And we all felt the same yoke of oppression upon us, but we all worked together to put this thing together. Now, to look at the actual text of the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Peoples, We have 23 preambular clauses which sort of lay out the situation. And then we have 46 articles. Now, these articles are, it can be lumped into various orders. I was lucky when I was researching this topic, I found an excellent document made by the University of, an Indigenous woman in the University of Sydney, Australia. And Helen, I can actually forward a copy of this to you for your information and distribution if you so like. But the major principles of the document go to non-discrimination and fundamental rights. And these are the rights that every person, regardless of race or color or creed, should be enjoying anyway, but they're put inside an Indigenous context. And these are the rights to all the human rights, fundamental freedoms that are recognized in international law, freedom from discrimination and the exercise of them. Some articles mention specific rights that are enjoyed by Indigenous individuals without discrimination, the right to life, liberty, and security, the possession of a nationality, and fundamental labor rights, the right to physical and mental health. And these are provisions that mention specific Indigenous people. The other one is the key principles are the right to self-determination. Now, I should point out at this point that in Canada, especially here on the prairies, we have what we call a number of treaties. And our ancestors signed these treaties with the Crown, and they've never really been fully recognized as they should have been. But this document takes it to that next level where it gives us those rights that, like, when we signed the treaty, we never signed away certain things. There was a land arrangement where we agreed to share the land with the newcomers. But we maintained the right to our own government, the right to our culture, the right to our religion. This was never mentioned in the treaties, although later on in the Indian Act, they were taken away from us. So that's this document goes into the Articles of Self-Determination. And we have the collective right to self-determination, and it's found in both international human rights covenants, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. And this declaration adopts international law to recognize our right to govern ourselves. Now, we also have the autonomy of our rights. We have a right to strengthen our distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions. We retain the right to participate, if we so choose, in the political, economic, and social and cultural life of the state. In other words, the state we live in, Canada. And there are certain rights that are internal. And those are rights that involve our own culture, our own language, and those cultural rights, we'll call them that. So it's the right to cultural integrity. We have the collective right to live in peace, free from acts of genocide and other forms of violence. Now, these are very important because we still face a lot of violence in many countries, and our people are badly exploited. There's, for example, in Canada, we form the majority in the prison system, for example, and we need to move away from that. And this recognition strengthens those rights of us. You have to excuse me here, I'm paging through. This is the area of concern. I've spoken to members of the provincial government and every so often, and the Conservative government in Ottawa has been on record as being in opposition to supporting the United Nations declaration. And their area of concern is the rights of ownership and control that are listed in the document. And the provision of this is Article 26 states, Indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired, and are entitled to use, develop, and control, such as lands, territories, and resources. Now, the opposition to has stated that this is a veto. Our people don't see it as a veto. They see it as a right to negotiate and the right to participate. There's a lot to be said about participation, because we have sat on the sidelines and just watched resources being developed and never really gained anything, maybe a little bit, but not very much. I'll give you two examples right now in Saskatchewan, and they were in the news just recently. First of all, we have people in Isle of Cross that are complaining, or not complaining, that have been very public about the fact that there's clear cutting in the north like crazy right now. The logging companies are moving in, and people are losing their trap lines. A number of people have gone out to see their trap lines, and all they found is an open field. And one of the families up in Isle of Cross has been very active about this. And if we have United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Peoples, we have a right to talk about this and to direct it. Like, we don't have to stop logging in Canada. We have to direct it, point it to different areas, and our rights have got to be respected. Because now those people go to trap line, there's no animals. They're just an open windswept plain. The other one would be up in the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. South of the town of La Ronge, there's a large peat bog, and the company wants to drain it and mine it, basically. And the Lac La Ronge Indian Band has said, you can't do that. You're going to disturb the water table. You're going to pollute the water with all this, the landscape with all this water that's coming out of there. And these bogs are habitat for birds and animals, and they've been there for thousands of years. And to just upset them is going to cause a considerable deviation in the northern. And once they start one, we all know fully well they're going to do more in the future. It'll become an industry, and they'll just dig up bogs all over the north. The company, on the other hand, has said they have a right to, and they also promised to create 25 jobs. We don't know what the jobs are, who's going to get them, or what quality they'll be. But with the United Nations Declaration and our control and ownership of resources, we have a right to tell them to stop. And we have or else do it somewhere else, or something like that. Because they do have harvest peat in this province, out in the Red Earth area, east of Carrot River. So it has been done, but it has to be done responsibly. And the idea that they just move in and take our resources and drain our land and just destroy our habitat, that has to stop. And that's one of the things that will be in this document. So like I said, the opposition is coming from business and the Conservative government. The Conservative under the Harper government, they passed it, but they said it was an aspirational document. That meant it had no legal right. And by aspirational, they meant it was like a wish list. And you can't build an economy, you can't build relationships on wish lists. I mean, that's just not the way things work. If you look at our treaties, basically the way our people have interpreted the treaties comes out in this document, and it takes our position forward, and it makes it articulates a lot of the things that our elders and leaders have been saying for generations now. That when we signed the treaty negotiators, this was the government. They told us we'd be allowed to share the land. We'd be able to travel freely. And so our people hunted and fished anywhere they wanted to at one time. And we never talked about the minerals or anything that lay beneath the ground. The negotiators said, we're not interested in that. We're only interested in the land for agricultural purposes. And so that was the understanding. And so our people welcomed settlers. We worked with them. We assisted them. A lot of settlers came to Canada and they just about starved in the first few years, and our people actually came by and helped them out. And for that, we were pushed aside. They developed the minerals, developed the petroleum resources. We never got any resource revenue sharing. We never got any participation. But with this document, we will be, it opens the door to all of that. And like I said, it articulates what's in our treaties. So just to sum up, this has been a long time coming. It's a lot of work. It's not just something that was dreamed up and written on the back of a napkin in a bar. It's something that people really put a lot of work into and spent over 2 decades getting the first draft, if you can imagine that, and then taking it to the General Assembly and having it negotiated through various committees. So it's a phenomenal piece of work. It really is. A lot of people don't realize that. They just think it's happened yesterday. Well, it didn't. It was a lot of work. A lot of very smart people came together to make it happen. And if adopted, it will make to my mind, it will give us a very positive and hopeful relationship with the Canadian government. So I look forward to this thing being passed by Ottawa and being seriously implemented to everybody's advantage. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doug. And yeah, that gives us all a lot of important perspective as we observe the debates about the bill going through at this time. Spirit of wisdom, we come seeking strength for the work of healing you call us to do. Thank you for the vision of healing that has been set before us and towards which we journey. Healer and sustainer, we thank you for the privilege of joining hands and walking together when there is pain and suffering. Help us to remember that by our presence, our words, and our actions, we offer to others your life, your hope, and your love. You have given us hands to touch one another's lives with comfort and healing. Help us never to use our hands to push away those whom we need, nor those who need us. Help us to reach for you in our moments of calm or frustration, anxiety or peace, grief or joy. May we share our gifts of healing with those whom you place in our care and graciously receive the care of others. Bless our hearts and hands, Holy Wisdom, and guide us to use them to make whole what is broken in our world. Let us take a moment in silence to remember those in our communities and our church who need our thoughts and prayers. Amen.
When mercy and with God's humble care. When you walk from here, when you walk from here, walk with justice, walk with mercy, and with God's humble care. When you walk from here, when you walk from here, walk with justice, walk with mercy, and with God's humble care. When you walk from here, when you walk from here, walk with justice, walk with mercy, and with God's humble care.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks to Doug especially. Doug, do you have a couple minutes if anyone has a question or two?
Yes, I have a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have an opportunity for a little Q&A.
Maybe I could start. Just want to say again, thank you, Doug. You always bring us wisdom and knowledge, and certainly appreciate that. For people's information, at the moment, Bill C-15, which is before the House of Commons, the National Indigenous Council of the United Church of Canada has written a letter saying that they can't support this bill because there's been no opportunity for consultation with the many Indigenous communities across Canada. And the United Church is one of the only mainline churches at this point that is not supporting Bill C-15. And prior and informed consent is a part of the declaration and is wide-reaching, and an indication of a lack of consultation with Indigenous communities at this point doesn't bode well for the acceptance of the declaration as a whole, because consultation is very much upheld in the declaration, but now that the ability to consult is not being allowed for.
Well, my question to that would be, so that what can individuals do about that, Helen or Doug?
About the lack of consultation, I think that needs to be brought forward, and our members of parliament or whoever has the floor, opinion leaders, should be able to speak out about it and mention it. I think it's very important that we have consultation.
Of course.
I realize that was an issue. The document itself is sound, but it needs to be explained and put out there among our people. I think it's dangerous if we don't do that, because a lot of our people we're just used to having stuff crammed down our throat, even the good stuff. And so, I think it's very important. And I think if more people speak out, the better.
Go ahead, Vicki.
Oh, hi, Doug. Hi, my name is Vicki. Another thing that is kind of being crammed down people's throats is this idea of small nuclear reactors for the North. And it's very scary stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Saskatchewan signed a memorabilia. Candace Paul at English River First Nation knows a lot about this.
Yeah, well, there's been no real groundswell of support for this in the North at all. In fact, it's an idea that came from the South.
Yeah.
And really, to my own mind, it makes no sense because this is an unproven technology and it could be very expensive.
Yeah.
Whereas solar panels are becoming cheaper and cheaper by the day.
Yeah.
So why don't we go for solar panels or even wind?
Yeah.
They're the two main sources of energy right now and worldwide. So I think I don't think we should be playing around with nuclear reactors.
No, no. Doug, is this something you could write about? Maybe interview Candace Paul?
Oh, I could write about lots of things. Probably. I touched on it this week in my column.
Thanks.
I was speaking about the environment.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to bring up something, Doug, that is a bit off topic. I went and saw Ruth's exhibit at the administration building. My name's Linda. And I loved it. And I was sorry that it was so restricted in attendance because of this COVID thing. Would it be possible for me to write to her and tell her how much I enjoyed it? And if so, can you maybe send Helen or somebody a message about how I can tell her about it, about my reaction to it?
Yeah, certainly. I'll send you her address.
Thank you very much.
I'll go through it. Yeah, I'll go through Helen.
It was stunning and very, very moving. I really enjoyed it. I wish I could have spent more time there or gone back. Thank you.
Actually, I should mention we're very proud of my sister Ruth right now. She has received the Governor General's Award last year, and she is going to be getting an honorary degree later on in the spring. I can't tell you where, but she's getting an honorary degree. It hasn't been announced yet.
It was absolutely amazing. Just really blew my mind. I loved it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think it's time to thank Doug once again, and I guess let us go out and enjoy the sunshine, at least where I am, or hopefully where you are too. So thanks again, and have a great Sunday.
Thank you. What a great service.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.